forgot to put up my splash screen. Ooh. It's distinctly unfair that I can't eat candy while doing this. Oh well. So, happy Halloween, everybody. It's hard to wear a lot of eye makeup with glasses. Like, that's okay. But, hey, Pseudonine. Oh, I forgot to tape this edge down. Oh, misstep. Hold on. A little bit of inside scoop. I have this plastic cover that I put on my work surface. I should move this closer as I'm chatting. Move these guys. Boop. So, there. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Oh, thank you for the feedback. I just got to tape down my work surface, so I don't need goo under the edge. Anti-goo masking tape. It's that little bit that I don't want to rub horror into my desk. Because inevitably you set your wrists here and that's where you like make mistakes. But now my work surface is covered. Happy Halloween to you too. Thanks for stopping by. What time is it by you? It's really early, right? But I do appreciate the hello. I hope this skull was worth it. Every little bit. What can we do? 2 p.m. Okay, yeah, you got a lot of Halloween left. So, reasonable. Oh, I love this. I just got a new toy. I got a single-piece scalpel. They're also called cartilage knives, and it's great. Oh, it's moving day. Oh, okay, of course. You have to get into your new place. Okay, well, I hope interspersed with moving a bunch of heavy objects and things, you get to eat candy and potentially watch some sort of interesting movie. I don't know if I'm going to get to watch any sort of holiday movie tonight, but I'm hoping tomorrow at least to watch Disney's Coco for Day of the Dead. So that's my plan. I hope you have something nice too. Totally. Well, for everybody who's on, I have my mouse skulls here. And as kind of a little treat, I wanted to see about bedazzling one of them. So I have some really tiny jewels to attach. I gotta see how this works. I'm not really sure what is gonna work great on bone. And then, of course, I have the big sheep skull. Aw, Chardon Mom, thank you. So, I realized I probably should have put some shading down on my jaw, too. Not just my zygomatic arch shade, but whatever. And, of course, it's really creepy this way, because I got rid of my eyebrows, so I look extra creepy. So, yeah. As soon as you obliterate eyebrows, your face looks weird. That's one of those things, even like if you ever watch like professional makeup tutorials, which are remarkably fun. I recommend it if you have never seen one to go watch one. A lot of times one of the first things they do is they erase their own eyebrows and then they paint on eyebrows where they want them. And while I don't think I'll ever do that in my life, for like regular looks, it does make one instantly creepy if you don't have any discernible eyebrows. So, that's kind of fun. So yeah, I'm trying to decide if I want to start with bedazzling or end with bedazzling. I mean, I do have this in front of me, so you can tell I have a little bit of a preference. Oh, someone's messaging me, just to make sure that's not super in. Hang on a second, I need to respond to this. This is important. While I'm getting started. The face makeup, what can I say? It's not something I usually do. So, let's go with this. And this. Boom. Alright, and then I will silence my phone. Alrighty. So, I kind of want to keep working on the big sheep. I also kind of want to do one of these, so I might play with these real quick. Like I have, this is my smallest skull. So this little dude. So this little mouse. And when I was cleaning him, I broke the zygomatic arch. There we go. You can see how there's an incomplete kind of arch here. Man, get that lighting. All right, there we go. You can kind of see the break. It's supposed to look like that. And so, man, I can touch my face a lot. And so this is going to be my experimental guide to see if I can figure out adhesives and stuff to glue gemstones to bone. It's really nice. It's in good condition. Overall, I'm really happy with how this one worked out. Like I managed to keep all the molars in place and all the teeth. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just gonna try doing this with what do you call it? Super glue. You know, just nice thin basic Aran Alpha super glue. So I have a little bit of super glue here, and I have a fantastic silly tool. Oh man, these have an official name. I'm forgetting it now. This one happens to be full of pink rhinestones, which is just delightful for what it actually does. But it's a picker, basically. So this end is made of wax. So this is just like a cone of white wax. And this end is a little metal tube. And so what you're supposed to be able to do with this is gently pick up rhinestones without using your huge human fingers and place them where they're supposed to go, and hypothetically the way that they're stuck onto the wax will be gentle enough that when they hit the adhesive they let go, and then you can use the metal tube side to kind of position them, because if it was a point it might slide around, but the tube kind of, you know, grabs onto it a little bit better. So I want to see how well Aran Alpha works, and then how well this picker works for a whole bunch of rhinestones on a little tiny, let me turn them that way, little tiny mouse skull. So, but I figure I'll do a little bit of this, we'll see how it goes, and if I'm having a great time, I might just stick on this project, or I can jump to the sheep at any time. It's sitting there being big and stinky. So. Okay, so I just gave myself this little dot of adhesive, which I have to figure out how do I want to apply that? What would be the best way to get that on? Maybe a toothpick, actually. Let's keep it simple. Do I have toothpicks in here? I've used that too much. Nuts, I didn't think about how I wanted to apply it. Because I could just, like, dip it, but... No, let me go get a toothpick. Yeah. Like, 10 seconds. Let me get a toothpick. Right back. Cat? No. Go away. So appropriately, my black cat was the one who was waiting outside the door, desperate to come in here because I have the sheep skull out. He's very excited about the whole thing. And no, he may not. Alright, so let's just boop, put some adhesive right on top. Right down the nose. Alright. And that looks like nothing, which is perfect because I don't want something that's going to be like a big bulky amount of glue. Okay. So I've picked up a tiny little rhinestone. Let's see if it actually sticks. That seems plausible. Alright, let's do that again. Let's see how this goes, because I really want to bedazzle the sheep. And of course, that's a much larger scale. But learning technique on a little tiny mouse, it's actually fairly cool. Nuggets, stay put. Alright, that's 2. This is so tiny. Here, let me try lowering the camera. You can kind of see. I gotta find the focus. There we go. Well, you can tell. There's 2 little shiny shinies on there. And so this is not traditional taxidermy by any stretch of the mind, obviously. But it's something I really wanted to try, because once I do all the work of cleaning the skulls, you know, I wanted to have a plan for what I'm going to do with them, since they don't have a scientific or research purpose, you know. I think my adhesive's drying. Alright, hold on. That one came off too. That one seems on. Alright, we got one. This is just super glue. This is my Aran Alpha, so it's the really thin viscosity super glue that I kind of like using. I would use this to glue bone to bone. And I've never tried to put a ridiculous rhinestone on a skull before. You know, Halloween seemed like a good night to do that. Rhinestones and skulls seem to go together on Halloween. So my guess was that it would work, but don't totally know. So we'll see tomorrow how much they all stick, you know. I might need some sort of top layer. It does dry fast, so. Alright. This is so silly. Happy Halloween. And there's a cat hair on here that I don't know if you... No, you guys can't see it, I don't think, but it's massive from my point of view. Because the mouse skull is just so teensy. Okay. Bumped the camera, didn't lose it. Man, okay, there's this hair that I've pretty much glued into place. I might have to just trim it off and move on with my day. This is so funny. Alright, good enough. Move on. Besides, if I just glue it down, no one will ever see it again. There'll be a little DNA trace of my cat on this mouse, which is sort of endearing. He had nothing to do with catching the mouse. It's a store-bought mouse for feeding snakes. Well, I'm actually really happy with this picker. The little wax tip picker is pretty cool. That's really funny. Very shiny. Cannot complain about the rhinestone shiny. I think I might do 2 wide all the way down the nose. Because even as small as these rhinestones are, the mouse is yet smaller. So... Oh, nuts. My tool sat in my super glue and absorbed it all because I had so little out. Boop. Oh, so hot tip to anybody who has super glue at home that's like recently opened, where there's still hope that this would work. If you store it in the freezer, it doesn't dry out as fast. So like this stuff is just an open tube that I've been using for months now, and it has remained nice because I store it in my freezer. Okay, where's the focus? Focus might actually be back here more. Try lifting this up. Man, this one does not want to come off of the wax. Wonder if it's already dried. Or maybe it was too wet. Actually, I might be thinking of that backwards. We'll see. Sharon Mom, I'm glad you like that. Honestly, like, I feel like anytime I ever open a tube of regular super glue, I effectively get to use it like once, and then by the time I get back to it, it's dried out. So when I learned that one, I was like, oh, it's game changer. Man, yeah, okay, so this single one won't cooperate. Screw it, I'm gonna ignore that. I want to move a new one in here and see if that works. Nope. Maybe my surface is too wet. I was doing better when it was a little bit tacky. Yeah, wow. Maybe this won't work. Experiments. Because I'd like to think it would, but I'd like to think all sorts of stuff. Because these, okay, the ones I put on before are on. They're, I'm not going to pry at it, but they're actually pretty on there. But the nose here is not working in my favor. So let's go ahead and jewel up the back, since that was working better, and I can always go back. How interesting. Like, I wonder, is the bone a slightly different quality? Did I put too much glue on? I'm not sure. Ooh, I can't touch my face. Yeah, back here there's going on great. It's also possible that the curve is too extreme on the nose, so I might have to use some sort of thicker glue. Which is obviously not my goal here, but I want it to work at all. Ah! Well, maybe I don't have the steady hand for this tonight. Maybe I do have to just go and rip apart a big sheep skull. That's okay. That needs work. I finally have all the stuff to make a stink bucket. I'm pretty happy about that. So for anybody who has not gotten to hear this story, to really degrease a skull, you gotta soak it. And so I have to make a bucket that I can soak it in, which is going to smell bad. There's like no way around that. And so to render my stink bucket, I now have a cooler that I found in an alley. Pretty happy about that. And I have a cheap aquarium heater that'll kind of keep it warm to give it that good macerating effect. Maceration is more or less creating a bacteria culture, and the bacteria can eat the stuff that I don't want that's on my skull. Okay, well, overall, that's definitely doing a thing. Like, sparkle, sparkle. That's pretty cool. Whew. This is going to take a time, though. So I think, based on playing with this a little bit, that I was having trouble with the gems in the one area because it had dried out too much. because bone is absorbent once you degrease it. And these guys are real thoroughly degreased. It's so blingy. Rhinestones are hilarious. Yeah. And I think I mentioned I got these rhinestones are actually for like putting on your fingernails. So you can paint your nails and stick a rhinestone to the fresh nail paint. And I tried it because that's kind of fun, and I don't love it because I pick at them. They create like a rough area on my nail, which I was surprised I really kept noticing. So I will probably not do that much. Special occasion, you know. Oh my gosh. This is so silly. I'm so glad I'm doing this. This is so silly. So for anybody who specifically wanted like gross gore bones, let me know. I can go pull that guy out. But I'm having a lot of fun doing this absolutely silly project. I am planning on working on the sheep at some point. I figured I would do the delicate stuff while, I was fresh. Because ripping the muscle off a sheep head does not take a lot of finesse. I could screw it up. Like, there's a little bit, but for the most part, it can be a little thuggish with the current set that it's on. Kind of funny when I add more glue I can see it really spread out, so I think it is getting like even between the stones I already set. Oh, that one adhered like immediately. Ooh, buddy, you're in the wrong spot. All that mess and grime, and here's one that doesn't want to move. There we go. Well, good. That means the glue, once it actually hits, is pretty good, actually. That's so funny. Tell you what, I think I'm going to do like half of this, and then stop. How long did it take to do my face? Not long. I had to make a choice of what things I wanted to highlight in terms of trying to do skull makeup tonight, because I'm not a makeup person. I don't really have a ton of practice. So I basically was like, okay, dab, dab, rub, rub, done, and walked away from it. So I think the longest thing that took me was to put the fairly even white on. And then it was just like, go from there. It was fun. Because I don't remember ever having done skull makeup before, ever. Like, it seems like that's a super classic kid Halloween costume, and I don't know if I ever did. I think I did something skull-ish when I was on my study abroad in England. I had kind of a ghost bride look, because I didn't have a ton of money or equipment, but staying in the dorm, I was able to go out and buy some sheets of white fabric and, like, roughly sew them together enough that it was a dress that I could just put on over the rest of my clothes. And I bought a square of veil material and was, boom, ghost bride. So it was a really, really cheap costume. And I did sort of a skull face for that. It might take me longer to take it off. Absolutely. Like, pros and cons, I suppose, of not going out a lot these days is if I have, the weird black schmirches of makeup that didn't want to come off, tomorrow is fine. No one's gonna know. This is so silly. It almost looks like it's got like a, I don't know, a weird, very sparkly infection. There you go. Yeah, and this is what I want to do to that sheep skull, is just like coat it in rhinestones, and this is so far giving me a lot of hope that I can do that with the larger specimen. Ah, my toothpick fell in my glue again. But I was looking up online the different types of makeup, and the way you remove the makeup is contingent on, you know, what the makeup is actually made out of. And I went and did something which is pretty common, but, you know, dicey, which is I used two different types of makeup. So the grease paint is grease-based. It's an oil-based thing, so that's all the black. And most of the white is water-based. So the grease paint you can mostly get off with soap and water, but the water base is actually better taking it off with grease, and so I'm going to want to use coconut oil or olive oil to get it off. So I might smell nice. Alright, you know. I can handle that as a side effect. Man, this is silly. I gotta figure out how much I want to crust, too. Like, is it just the top? Am I gonna get inside of these eye orbit areas? You know, I gotta kind of feel out where I'm gonna go with this. Oh. I'm gonna do a few more, and then I'm gonna switch gears and work on the big guy. Because it's Halloween. I gotta get the big gruesome thing out. Because it is big and gruesome. But it's, you know, that mouse never looks so good. I mean, rhinestones, they're fun. It's kind of what they're for. I'm really impressed with these wax pickers. Like this, literally the tool does the thing that the tool said it was going to do in the description. I mean, okay, right? Wow. That's so great. And I don't know how well you guys can see. Yeah, now you can see those, how just sparkly it is. Happy Halloween. Good to see you not here. I am blinging out a mouse skull. Oh, looks like that dried up a little bit. It is funny that my regular content that I do on this channel on Saturdays is, you'd think, like, perfect Halloween material, and here we are on actual Halloween and I'm not doing it. But, you know, whatever. It's my channel. Ha ha ha. Oh, I'm not here. I'm glad you like it. It is so far absolutely satisfying. Whoop. Ah. Apparently the back is starting to dry out a little bit on me. So yeah, there it is, coming along very nicely. And it's funny to think of, like, okay, so if I end up with a bunch of, or in this case, 3 blinged out mouse skulls, what do I end up doing with them? And, like, I don't know. I don't wear earrings, but I could see turning them into earrings, potentially. Or other pendant. Here, hold on. Let me change my focus. See if I can zoom in a little bit more for you guys. There we go. Cool, right? Like, I am amused. This is funny. And these stones just look so big on this little tiny skull. Immature mice are not big. This is not the smallest skull I've ever worked with, but seeing as I've never put rhinestones on a skull, it is officially the smallest and biggest skull I've ever put rhinestones on. Jeez, that's really fun. They're so shiny. This makes me more open to maybe putting them on my fingernails, but probably not. So since it's Halloween, the important conversations are generally costumes, movies, and candy. I feel like we've covered costumes. I'm good, but if anybody else is dressed up today or wants to talk about your costume, I am definitely curious because I can't see you all. But I'd like to imagine you guys are all as blinged out as this mouse. Candy, I have been so far working on a classic Hershey's mix. Pretty happy with that. Although, man, like Whoppers, I'm kind of done with Whoppers. I can only eat so many at a time. And my moderator can't have them at all, so it's not fun. How will I be blinging out the sheep skull? With larger rhinestones, let me tell you. But probably the same way. I'm thinking for at least a couple of intro skulls that I'm trying this on, I'm just going to do like these really even like encrustings of rhinestones. I won't try to do patterning or anything just because I haven't played with it before. And it's going to be a lot of work just doing it boring, you know, just doing even lines. And so that might decide if I'm ever going to try this again, doing it with fancy patterns or colors or mess like that. So at the moment, it's kind of an experiment to see if I even want to do this on a larger scale. Because I might just get bored. So far, I think not. So far, it's kind of working for me. But yeah, the sheep, I'm imagining, might do round rhinestones again, because they're pretty common, or square ones. And then just lines and lines and lines of them. Something smaller compared to the animal than these, but way bigger. How? That's so silly. But the super glue, this I think is the right adhesive. I'm really happy with how these are staying on. With some limited issue, I have not really had too much trouble with this. So that's cool. Here, let's go back to my problem area since I'm saying that. Because I couldn't... Yep, and I just had, I think, the one I just glued on fall off the back. I couldn't get anything to stick to this nose. So let's see if I have any luck along there. And I don't know why they wouldn't stick. Mysterious mouse. There goes not wanting to stick again. Oh, that's on there a little. Because bone can have different qualities. You know, different areas are going to be more or less porous, more or less like flat or curved. Ooh, that's upside down. Oh, okay, it seems to be working now. Alright. Oh, hey, library rat. Doing a little bling. Library rat, this is one of the mice from the open house who is now getting a bling treatment. I did a taxidermy demo for a park district outside of Chicago in September, and they were kind enough to let me use some feeder rats, and these are some of those feeder rats. So, oh gosh, that's so good. Okay, now the nose seems to be cooperating and I'm getting the jewels to stick, so rock and roll. Let's continue with that. No, that's not sticking now. Rar, rar, rar. Oh, man. This is so silly. Yeah, like these, honestly, these are huge on this tiny little animal. These are the smallest rhinestones I could easily get a hold of, both in terms of stock and in terms of picking up at all. But they look huge on this, whereas I think if I'm doing the sheep, I'm going to be using stuff that is compared to the sheep much smaller. And the coverage will look a little smoother. Probably maybe put one on the tip. Nah. Alright, so that's all the way down the nose. So here I have a half blinged mouse skull. How long did that take me? That took me a minute. I think I'm gonna switch gears here. Oh, I can't rub my face. Man, it looks okay. I'm gonna switch gears and I'm gonna go work on the sheep. Whew. But I'm gonna keep doing that. I'll finish that mouse, and that gives me hope that actually doing the sheep skull that way is gonna be kind of interesting. So I'm glad to have tried it, you know, before really committing to that big of a project. Because that sheep's gonna take forever to... Everything about that sheep takes forever. Alrighty. Easy disposal. Aw, library rat. Sorry to hear that. Hopefully I'll see you in a minute. Alrighty. So I can easily flip my workspace here. Yeah, she would have had the hamster skull in her hair. And so having a blinged out skull makes a lot of sense for that character. I agree. Alright. Oh, I have to change my camera focus back to kind of wide angle. As much as this camera goes wide. Zoop. There we go. Ha ha. Technical difficulties nailed. Alright. Let's do some gross stuff. We've done our pretty Halloween stuff. Now we can do gross Halloween stuff. Oh. Cannot rub nose. Ah. I guess there's a reason people don't necessarily dress up like this every single day. Alright. Back to the big guy. Back to work. He's drippy. Blap. Alright, so in case there's anybody on the channel who hasn't met this before, this is the skull of a domestic sheep. Which is what? Ovis Capri, I think. And I've got this guy on the run. It's going really, really well. So I've gotten most of the tissue off of it by hand. That's going pretty well. But I've got, like, that sort of schmutz I gotta get off before I can really continue on and degrease it. And like, by degreasing, you can tell that this isn't, like, perfectly beautiful white bone. I've got a lot of work to do because there's blood inside bone. Blood and fat and all sorts of exciting things inside the bone. So once I get all the tissue off the outside, then I'm going to have to soak it and degrease it and get all that stuff out of the inside. And that is a long, slow process that will not appear on stream. Because that's like weeks. But, let's see, where's the cartilage actually start? Alright, so now we're just at the picking phase. So in terms of Halloween entertainment, this year is obviously, for a lot of people, it's going to be movie heavy. Last night I was part of a watch party hosted by an organization called Gen Con for Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 1973, I think, edition. Where like one of the bad guys is Leonard Nimoy, which is pretty epic. And I'm not actually a huge fan of most horror movies. I can't like watch them too much. I will lose sleep. It's me. I admit it. I get scared. But if it's goofy enough, or if I'm doing other things, in this case I was talking to friends, then it's kind of okay. And Invasion of the Body Snatchers I was interested in because I watched parts of, I don't think we watched the entire movie, but we watched parts of the 1950s version in a history class once, to kind of show, like, how everybody was on tranquilizers and, you know, nobody believed anybody. And the biggest difference, so spoiler alert if anybody's concerned about this or hasn't seen these movies, the 1950s version ends positively. I guess it's not a happy ending, but it ends positively, where basically they're like, we're being invaded by body snatchers. Oh, hey, Sprucehorn. Oh, maybe it is Ovis Aries. You're completely right. Yes, I bow to that. Because Capri is goat. They're similar, but they are actually different species. To answer your question, I got the skull from the supermarket down the street. It was $6.99 for a sheep head, obviously with a lot more meat on it when I bought it, to make, soup out of. The people at the deli case were really nice. They're like, oh, do you want us to cut it for you? I'm like, no, just whole, thanks. So, yeah, it's just grocery store meat. As one does. Not really. But yeah, Capri is totally goatee. Although I like Ovis, because I like the word ovine. Because, I don't know, for me in my experience, I've used the term bovine pretty often for things related to cows. Hey, library rat, glad to have you back. But ovine is things related to sheep. And I don't know, having them sound so similar, I find delightful. So for anybody who has not heard me talk about this before, yes, this is the wrong way to clean this. The right way to do this righter way to do it, however you want to describe it, is to have beetles do it for you. I do not have flesh-eating beetles. I live in an apartment. That's not really going to be a thing. They smell. But it would be nice if I had flesh-eating beetles to do this for me. So this is what they're really great at, because flesh-eating beetles would be able to get all this soft stuff off without harming the bone even the slightest, whereas I'm using metal tools and there's a chance I'll nip through something that I care about. Beetles don't do that. They care about what they care about, and they don't care about what they don't care about, so they just eat all the delicious fresh stuff and leave the bone and cartilage behind. And then the human has to go and get the cartilage back off, but it's not as bad when they've done all that work for you. It has been fun to work on this, though, by hand. It lets you, really appreciate kind of all the ways the bones are knit together and all the different muscle groups and just how thoroughly attached all your face stuff is. Is it the beetles or the flesh eating that smells? Interestingly, both. So, the flesh eating, if you want to prepare a proper dinner for a flesh eating beetle, you do not give them nice, fresh food. You dry it out a little bit first. Dermestid beetles, which are the actual name of the flesh-eating beetles, well, I mean, not actual, they're all common names. But dermestid beetles are late decomposers. So, like, if a sheep is in a field and it falls over and dies and no one goes and cleans it up, then the very first buggos, the first decomposers on the scene, let's stick with invertebrates right now, so ignoring vultures and stuff. The first insects on the scene are going to be wasps, ants, and flesh flies, like the big fat flies. Those guys want the wet stuff, and they'll start eating it at the areas that are open. So, like, if the animal died by being attacked by something, they'll go for the wounds. If not, they will go for the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the anus. Because those are openings to the soft part of the body. And that's where they start laying their eggs, chewing on stuff, making a big mess. And then they'll start opening up the carcass so that other insects can get in. So your flesh flies, your average, big fat house fly, is actually rather discerning and wants the nicer, fresher, wet stuff. And a few days pass, things get real gross and squirmy. And their larvae have just a great time, and, it becomes a big putrid mass of goo. Then that party ends. The baby flies all mature and fly away and live their little fly lives, looking for other dead sheep. And what you have left is everything they didn't want. So their feces, a lot of, baby goo, and whatever muscle mass and organs and stuff that they didn't eat that have now started to dry out. So that's when you get kind of the mummy phase. And you get, like, the roadkill that's always just like the street pizza, flat, gross thing with hair sticking out of it. That's when these guys move in. And you got your later stage decomposers that'll come in, and they want what the other ones didn't want. They want dry muscle tissue. They want hair, stuff like that. And so if you're feeding your colony of dermestid beetles, a lot of times what you do is you actually remove a lot of the muscle. Not the detail work that I'm doing here, but a good bit of it. And then you stick it next to a fan for a couple of days and let it dry a little bit. But of course it's going to get smellier and smellier because the bacteria is still there. So what they're eating smells bad. The flesh they're eating is bad. But then, of course, if you eat putrid flesh, you poop worse. And so they smell bad because of what they're ingesting and living in. So generally, the dermestid colonies that I've gotten to know and love are pretty stinky. It's not the worst. I think, like, fresh rotting meat smell is worse than, like, old funk. So take that as you will, I guess. But they... Oh, that's what's going on there. Okay, so there's... Alright. So here's my current quandary. This is cartilage. Blah, 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 blah. Not bone. Not even a little bit bone. And I don't really want it, but I've been trying to figure out where I could cut it off. And I think I can kind of see it now. Because I kind of nipped the side of it here, so I think I found the edge of the bone a little. So I've got to see if I can follow that. Because it's hard to see because everything's kind of pinky white. And also, in weird news, the inside of this nose smells like animal breath. Well, that was a good Halloween story. You're welcome. Decomposers. I have a much longer decomposer talk I used to give at the Nature Museum. It was pretty great. Where we would actually set up 4 dead rats out in the in kind of an outdoor space that wasn't super obvious. We kind of hid them in the bushes. So that I could, at this event, I would take people out on a tour to go look at the rotting rats. And we put them out in, yeah, live rat, you know what I'm talking about. We put the rats out in succession. So they weren't all put out on the same day. They were put out on different days. So they were at different stages of decomposition. And so you could actually see the stages. You could see the earlier rats that had been out there for longer were just kind of flat and gross and didn't have a lot of bugs on them. But if you lifted them up, you could see all the creepy crawlies underneath. A lot of beetles and gross. Whereas the fresh ones were all the like blah, super bloated, super grody, covered in flies, covered in wasps, things like that. It was great. I wasn't able to go to that event last year because I was moving, and there was a complaint that I wasn't there. A visitor was like, "We came to see the rotting rats." They didn't get to do it. So I think that's as complaints go, that one's pretty delightful. But I'm also flattered. So it was a good event. Okay, yeah, I think I can see where the edge is here. I wonder how much damage I'm going to do here. Because I don't really want all this if I don't have to have it. You know what? I need to get rid of this. This is just a lot of extra. Blap. Sprucehorn, if you're still on, what time is it by you? I never get the time change right. Is it morning? This looks like a big vein. Oh man, I think I have a cat hair in my eye too, and there's like nothing I can do about that. Oh well. Moving on. That still looks like cartilage. I think I might just be super rude here and cut some of this stuff off. Because like... there is not bone there. That is not bone. Just go away. Ah, man. Sheep face smells bad. Okay, so it's 10 a.m., just about 10 a.m. on Sunday. Well, thanks for waking up with this. Happy November 1st. Okay. Yeah, like, look at all that I could take off. That's just all cartilage. That's a lot. So I might wait to do any more trimming along here. I actually can probably go up here a bit. Just get some of this, like, mass out of here. I don't need it. It's not bone. Alright, so now you can actually see up into the sinus pretty well. And that's starting to look more skull-like, right? You lose that extra mass. Yeah, I'm glad to get some of this extra stuff out of here. This is pretty gross. And this is one where, because I'm so used to working with birds, noses are weird to me. There's just a lot of cartilage and extra structures that I'm not really used to, whereas birds are just like, it's a beak, and I want to keep that. Done, you know? Mammals have weird wiggly bits on the front of their faces. So yeah, I'm glad to have that. It is a relief to have that off of there, because I keep looking at it being like, what do I even have to do with that? And the answer is just get rid of it. Faces are complicated. There we go. Ah, that was a good piece. So I'm getting into another cartilage area. I think that was what was slowing me down on the tip of the nose there, as I was really hitting more cartilage, and the tissue adheres to the cartilage differently than the bone. Like, I think this is a wedge of, yeah, it kind of flexes. This is some cartilage in here. Might just be able to, like, trim this off. Yeah, let's try just trimming that off. Wow, the grease paint on my lips has really come off, too. Back in the day, I had black lipstick, but it seems that has run its course, and I couldn't find it anywhere when I was putting on this outfit. But you guys can still tell. You know, it's still doing the thing. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. Oh, so for people, definitely in the US, not sure about elsewhere in the world, I found a delightful little website last week called homesciencetools.com, and they're basically like where small-time educators and homeschoolers can purchase science stuff, including critters to dissect. So it's the whole kit. If you want to have a kid dissect a cow eyeball, or a fetal pig or something, they'll sell you all the stuff to do it, including like the how-to guides, which I thought was just wonderful. And so I was able to get a couple of tools there that I wasn't able to find in a way I wanted other places. So if anybody really wants to literally try it at home, they will sell you the kit to do your own fetal pig or cow eye or snake. Couple of the weird things. They have other stuff too, you know, rock tumblers and star maps. You know, they're for all the science, but if you want stinky science, they also do that, which I appreciated. Alright, what can I get down to here? Oh, there we go. That's a good lip. Haha, that's a lot. Okay, that's good. That's good. You guys can see this huge thing I'm getting off. Delightful. And something I don't know, because I haven't done this method yet, is I don't know how much of this tissue would just come off like super easily by macerating it. So maybe when I get it into the degreasing bucket, the stuff will just like float away and I don't have to worry about it. That's not my impression. My impression is that the whole system works better the more stuff you get off ahead of time. So that's what that's the information I'm working with. But I do wonder like how much this is unnecessary. But I haven't done this method before. At the museum, the specimens I worked on were largely just classic taxidermy, where I'm skinning them and mounting the skin onto a new form. And so with that, I wasn't worried about bones. I threw the bones away, you know, for the most part. The only thing we really cleaned were mammal skulls, but it's not like I ever did a sheep. There's not a native species of sheep I had to worry about. The largest thing I ever worked on bone-wise was like a mink, which is, you know, ferret size, more or less. So I'm not used to this. Like, doing those little mouse skulls and making them perfectly white, phew, easy peasy. Done that a million times. But not Not something quite this big. Big and stinky. Mammals are stinky. Oh man, I got that nice and clean down through there though. That looks really, really good. That looks really, really good. And I'm getting up to that weird hard palate because sheep don't have any teeth up here. So like, is it just gonna skin nicely around the edge? I mean, no, probably not, but that would be super cool if it did. Well, that's actually kind of coming off around the edge. Wouldn't that be cool? Ooh, yeah, that's actually... Let me try to move over so you guys can see a little more. I've got a definite, like, edge of the plane change, basically. I'm going from the side plane to the bottom plane a little bit more than I thought I was going to be successfully doing. Yeah. Alright, I'm up to that big rubbery front lip, and it's that... Okay, so the very front is definitely really hard to get off. This bit of palette is starting to actually go, though. So I might work back here a little bit more. Can I just, like... Yeah, because I got this side down clean, too. So... For anybody who possesses a mouth, which is most of us, you know that like your gums are kind of rubbery. You know, when you floss them, they wiggle around and they're pretty tough. They can deal with you eating strange food. That's a real bugger right here, because trying to get through this guy's inner mouth tissue is something of a trial. I managed to clean off the whole bottom mandible, so I know I can do the top, but it is not easy. If anybody wants to see the lower mandible, let me know. I'm happy to put that on camera again. Pretty proud of how that came out. Oh man, okay, so I was reading up on sheep, and on the Wikipedia article, so I didn't follow the reference links for this, so there's my cite your sources. I didn't do all the work on this, but in the Wikipedia article they were saying that, you know, sheep have no front incisors at all. They have lower incisors, and then they have these series of teeth in the back, and apparently there's like an academic debate about whether they have 6 molar, or what is it? 1, 2, 3. If they have 4 molars on each side, or if they have 3 molars and a canine that looks like a molar. And I'm like, what? You know. Corn chips are pretty good at cutting gums if I'm having trouble. I'll keep that in mind. But it was such a weird, like, academic debate. Like, are they actually the tooth they look like, or do they just look like that tooth but are actually their tooth? And I get what they're saying. They're basically talking about, you know, did it evolve from the other one? But it's just such a, like, this is what you guys are arguing about, is if they're molars or other types of teeth that look like molars? Oh my god. That's an Ig Nobel. So... Spirited academic debate, sure. I can just trim through this. Alright, let's see if I can just cut some of this away. Oh yeah, actually, I'm starting to see the results of this effort, which is nice. Blah. Boogery piece. Gums are weird. I prefer birds. Gums are weird. This is gross. La la la. Alright. Oh, okay, that's a bunch. You can see the bone on there. Oh, switch hands. Not here. You love using channel points. Okay, how am I gonna do this? Okay, so this is my main tool, so now I'll use it in my left hand. We'll see how this goes. Oh man, that's so weird. Alright. I will only guarantee I'm gonna do this for about 30 seconds. Unless I'm making okay headway, and then I'll try to stick with it for a minute, but... Oh, that's weird. Yeah, no, you're the undisputed master of using the channel points. Well done. You'll note that I have Kitty Visit turned off while I'm doing taxidermy, so... Can't do that. Oh. Nope, nope, not switching back yet. Trying to do this a little longer. Well, I'm actually doing it. I am getting some of this stuff loose. So, this is one where switching hands hasn't been too bad. So there we go. For anybody unfamiliar with channel points, we'll let you in on the joke. If you look underneath the box where you can type a message into the chat channel, there should be like a little purple bubble, an image of a bubble more or less, and it'll have a number next to it. And that is channel points. And channel points you just accrue the longer you watch, and so that you just, get them over time. Although sometimes a little thing will pop up where you can get extra ones. It's kind of like a little mini game. And I have a couple of... There's some basic things. Whew. Okay, I'm going to try to go a little longer on this, and I've got some basic ones so you can, like, highlight your message or unlock them emote, things like that. Those are pretty fun, but then I've got a couple custom ones, and one of them is that Not Here just did is making me use my offhand to do stuff. Alright, that's not bad. Whew, okay. There, that was at least a minute of using my offhand. I hope you are happy. And channel points are there just to be whimsical. There's no money attached to that. It's nothing like that. They're just fun. Because fun is important. Oh. Aw, come on, library rat! Okay, fine. You people. I say it's fun. Okay, no, I was gonna trim this, so I'm gonna trim with my scissors in my left hand. So what you're telling me is I need to up the cost. Alright. So it's, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try to keep it going, if I can. But I'll guarantee at least 30 seconds of struggle for you guys. Because who doesn't love the struggle? Man, yeah, I can't get the scissors to scissor. This is... Wow, I was better with the picking work than I am with scissors in my left hand. I don't think these are that dull. I think this is me being inept. Can I grab this piece? Okay, that's working a little better. I'm gonna go a little longer because I found something that worked here, but then I'm switching back. Okay, no, I gotta stop. Whew! You guys. Teaming up on me, I tell you. If anybody has any ideas for additional things that you think would be fun as channel points, always let me know. I'm not necessarily going to do them, but, I will consider your opinion. All right, that's a bunch. So that's that whole thing cleaned off. That's not bad. Overall, pretty happy. Ah, it's so meaty still in a lot of this stuff. Oh wow, that's an easy thing. Wait, whatever this is, I'm gonna get this out. Back here by the ear. So something you can't do with a real scalpel is all of this twisting I'm doing. I can do it because it's one solid piece of metal. But I always had to be really watchful of my volunteers using a scalpel and twisting. Because the knife blade is so thin, you can just snap it. And I really don't want shards of scalpel flying through the air when people are, you know, really ever. I don't know there's a good time ever for that. But with a big knife like this, I can get away with that. I still don't want it to snap, obviously. Don't push it too hard, but it's much less likely that I would do that without doing something really obviously egregious. But man, scalpel blades can just go. You can honestly be doing stuff that's kind of reasonable and they'll just let go. Which is not great. That comes up when I teach the public taxidermy classes too. People just want to use them to pry or cut into something they can't see. If you're like skinning a critter and you're digging and like slicing and digging, you're doing it wrong because you're peeling it. You just peel it back and then you always know what you're cutting. But people often kind of stab into the dark and I'm like, oh, it's just gonna cut you. Please don't cut you. There's enough ways to accidentally hurt yourself with a scalpel without doing stuff that's obvious. You might as well, you know, avoid the easy to avoid things. The worst thing that I do still occasionally cut myself with is if I drop it and you go to like grab at it and then you're like, I just grabbed a falling scalpel. And it's, you know, thanks brain. Good job, everybody. But, you know, catching an object that you were holding is a pretty natural response. But you shouldn't do that when the thing that you're dropping is a scalpel. Just, you know, make sure it doesn't land on your foot is really what your prime focus should be. Oh, so the other thing I bought from this cool little home science thing is a couple of really basic, like, how-to guides on dissection. I don't think I'm gonna stream dissecting things. I don't really love doing it. You'll laugh. I find it kind of gross. There it is. It's neat, but it's kind of gross. And you don't get anything out of it. You just get a kind of thoroughly taken apart critter. And so I probably won't do a full dissection, but there's lots of descriptions of, like, what's this thing you're looking at, which I really want that reference. Because my nomenclature for, like, parts of a skull is okay. It's not great, you know, so, like, zygomatic arch, great, you know, eye orbit, I got some of them. But there's a lot of areas I don't remember consistently what the terminology is, and so I got these little how-tos so I can brush up on that. You know, because if I'm explaining stuff to you guys, I would really rather have the right terminology. And so there's basic stuff, you know, nose, but there's a better term for this. I think this is the maxilla. And like this is the premaxilla, I think. But don't quote me on that. And so that's the sort of stuff I want to just try and improve. And it was always on the list. I like learning new words. I just generally like language, and I like calling things by their proper name, because you can say something's a nose, but if you're looking at a specific part of it, like the bone or whatever, there is a different word. You know, you can be more precise. So, let's see if I can improve on that. I mean, there's always improvement. Oh, there was a big piece of something. What was it? I don't know. It came up from in here. I'm gonna go with sinus. I'm gonna go, ooh, yeah. Good juicy sinus bits. Wow, the stuff on the inside of the sinus is just like peeling off really elegantly. Not that you can see much from your angle, but it's very satisfying, just so everybody knows. It's very nice. After dealing with that nose, it's absolutely just therapeutic. And you can see here, this kind of smooth area, that's bone. Like, you can kind of hear it. Versus, like, blap, 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 you know, clack, clack, clack. And so once I can get under all of the muscle and connective tissue and actually find the bone, I can find an edge and start picking up the edge, kind of like finding the, you know, edge of a piece of wallpaper and just taking the whole thing off. But if I can't find that, it's rather gooey. That means that this is going a lot faster back here now. Because I started to mess with this last week and I didn't make any headway. Oh, delightful. All right. So, I have a cute story about humans, for anybody who's interested. We had one trick-or-treater today. The trick-or-treater, we are in Chicago. This trick-or-treater lives in New Jersey. She is 3. And, no, 5? Jeez, I keep forgetting. Anyway, she's really cute. And, her parents set it up where they were calling friends. And so she could practice trick-or-treating even though she can't go out right now. And so you call up friends and she gets to say trick-or-treat. And we had a magic portal where they had a big candy bucket with a black bag inside of it. And we had our own candy bucket. And so we'd shake the candy bucket and she'd knock on the side of her bucket and then reach in and find candy. And so that way she still got to talk to people and say trick-or-treat and talk about how cute her costume was from across great distances and safely. So it was very, very cute. So our one and only trick-or-treater, for those who are curious, she was dressed as Totoro from the Miyazaki heartwarming film. And she was the cutest little monster you could have asked for. So, and because it's us, I made sure that that was really cute. When we answered the call, I was holding Rumi. So I had a giant cat in my arms just to make the phone call cooler, which your average trick-or-treater would not be so lucky. So, it was fun. I do appreciate creativity. Yeah, and we didn't have trick-or-treaters in our street last year, so in terms of like actual Chicago kids, apparently this area isn't one where people stop. But yeah, really cute, right? Yeah. So and of course this child is pretty darn smart, and so she mostly wanted to go back and, you know, be allowed to go back into the magic portal and get more stuff because she could feel the other things in there. So she insisted that her cat, her little plushy cat, also needed a turn reaching in. And okay, you know, you just have to have the cat say trick or treat, and it was the whole thing. It was very cute. I didn't have my makeup on yet, which I think was probably good, since she was pretty small. But I was wearing a hoodie with monster horns, and so I was also a monster. And so, you know, we could bond over our shared monsterhood. I don't think there was bonding, but that's okay. Oh, that sounded bad. Well, I heard a snap, so I've broken something. Not that I can see, because there's this big, like, blob here of something or other. So I might have a little damage on this inner part. That's too bad. I'm having it. Let's see if I can get this corner cleaned off. It's a really textured bit of bone here, so I'm not really sure how cleanly this is going to want to let go. Alright, I got under it. That's going. Nice, nice, nice. Nice, nice, nice. There it goes. Okay, so you can kind of see there's a... I'm getting this nice edge here. Alright, so this is just like a big ball of flesh in a really complicated area. The back of the skull, especially kind of where the jaws are, is always a really complicated area. And so there's a lot of digging here. Oh, so in future taxidermy news, I have been in contact with the director of the collection of the Chicago Academy of Sciences, because even though I was laid off, I'm still on the salvage license, so I can legally pick up protected species and bring them to the Nature Museum. And we were reviewing the license, and if they're in my possession, they don't have to, or they do have to make it to the Nature Museum within a certain amount of time, but that amount of time is just before December 31st of this year. So I can have them in my possession for a hot minute. And so I was talking to Dawn, and I'm like, or Dawn Roberts, the head of the collection, and I was like, I think this means I can taxidermy them for you. And she's like, yeah, I think so. So I'm going to pick up some specimens and probably do them on stream. I don't see any reason why not, because those are going to be legal specimens because I am possessing them for an institution that's going to be using them for research. So I'm already on the salvage license, and so I actually am legally an agent in that sense. And you don't have to work, you don't have to be paid to do that. You just have, as long as the government knows that you're picking this up for this other institution, and it's tagged as such. So as soon as I gain possession of these specimens, I just have to label them as the property of the Chicago Academy of Sciences, and then I can work on them. And it's sort of funny doing free work for an institution that fired me. So yeah, there I said it. But that means I get to work on a freaking, like, bird that's protected. So that was my bread and butter. That's what I loved doing. Yeah, no, not here. I'm really happy. That's what I love doing at my job. And so they're a nice institution. I love the director of the collection. If I can save her some steps and work on these specimens during a time when I know she's short-staffed because they can't have collection, or they can't have volunteers. Yeah, no, it's for the collection. It's for Dawn. And, that's really cool. So I'm gonna pick up some specimens and do that. And it was just really fun to talk to her about it. So it's nice, like I have a vast capacity for being bitter. Like, whoo, very good at being bitter, very good at being angry. Please do not assume not. But there's cost benefit. And so I could either be real mad at everybody at that institution who done me wrong, or I could recognize that it's a global crisis, things suck for everybody, and if I can work with somebody who I really treasure and do work that I like doing, sure. So, yeah, that's the current plan. And so that's going to be pretty much probably as soon as I get this sheep skull on the run and in a bucket. Potentially as early as next Saturday. We'll have to see. There's moving parts I gotta figure out. And I'm trying to figure out, like, I have my salvage license in the house with me, so like if the DNR calls me, I can give them my number and be like, no, 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 this is, here's all the paperwork, everything's in order, thank you, don't arrest me. I have no idea how much the Illinois Department of Natural Resources watches Twitch, but assuming they do, it was super nerdy, but I was re-looking over my salvage permit because I was looking at possibly just transporting something, and I was like, wait a minute, I can hold on to this for months? Oh, well, poo. So, there's some caveats. Like, if something's an endangered species, yeah, it's a little... They care more. And as I would tell my volunteers, just don't even make eye contact with a dead bald eagle. Like, if you see a dead bald eagle, just immediately call the DNR and be like, there's a dead bald eagle, I didn't touch it. God. Because there's a lot of law protecting bald eagles. And you know what? Great. They needed it. But don't make assumptions. If you see a bald eagle on the side of the road, it's probably wrong of you to stop and try to do anything for it. Call the cops. Call for help. Don't be the one. And like, you cannot possess eagle feathers. There's laws specifically for eagle feathers. I mean, for any bird that's actually a protected migratory species, which is most of them, you can't collect their feathers either. So like, if you see a robin in your yard that drops a wing feather, you can't have it. Sorry, P.S. But with eagle feathers, they take it above and beyond, and there's lotteries to receive them because a lot of Native American groups attach spiritual significance to bald eagle feathers. And so they can possess them, but there's like a lottery to see if you get them, and it's a whole world. So if you see a bald eagle on the side of the road, just call the cops. Don't touch it. Why the rules on feathers? Basically for religious significance, to be able to support indigenous peoples of the Americas who held them in significance and be able to support their culture, while also not causing the bird to go extinct. I mean, you find the balance. Work with everybody. But, yeah, and I know a wildlife rehabber who got into hot water for picking up, for having a volunteer pick up an injured bald eagle. Because the volunteer did not have the licensing with them. So even though they were volunteer with the organization, they didn't have a permit on them that said that they could handle a bald eagle. And so the highway patrol nailed them. And I think they were fined quite a lot of money. I don't think they went to jail, but it was a big ol' like, you cannot do that. So even though they were stopping to render care, and they knew they were stopping to render care, they didn't have a license that demonstrated that they were a capable person who could stop and render care. So, yeah. Bald eagles. Don't do it. Golden eagles are covered under that, broadly speaking. So if you see a really big bird of prey that you think might be un-eagle, just don't. And actually, I think a lot of people in America don't even know that we have 2 species of eagles that are really common. Well, not really common, but widespread. And golden eagles are huge and beautiful. Because anybody who lives in Alaska and other areas where bald eagles are really common, they're just big, stinky fish eagles that make silly noises. Whereas, like, golden eagles are more of the majestic, soaring predators. In my opinion, I think they're a little cooler. So, Library Rat, you said people fight beyond an eagle's range all the time. I'm not entirely sure what your sentence is. I feel like there's a typo in there. Oh, people fight you about the eagle's range all the time? That doesn't surprise me. They're actually kind of all over the place. They're all around Illinois. That everybody take a moment and feel real good about that, actually. So yay, conservation efforts working. Hey, did it. Save the eagle. Because, man, it was real dicey in there for a while with DDT and all that. But you banned the horrible pesticide that's poisoning them and do a whole bunch of conservation effort, and it works, actually. Yay! So there's a lot of bald eagles and a pretty solid amount of golden eagles in the United States, and that's a real good feeling, actually. So good job, everybody. Go team. Yeah, no, they're definitely in northeastern Ohio. We've seen them traveling, I think near Sandusky. There's a huge valley you drive through when you're going across the top of Ohio, and I've seen eagles soaring in this big valley, and it's very cool. But yeah, no, they're out there. So good job. Like, yay us. Conservation work works. It's real slow, you guys. Like, real slow. But it's really nifty that when people actually pull together and decide that, yeah, we are gonna, change our ways to not drive these animals to extinction, you can do it. You can actually, save them. And eagles are just a phenomenal example of that. Good job, us. I read the most heartwarming conservation story about lampreys. So for anybody who is unfamiliar with lampreys, lampreys are a jawless fish with a big opening at the end of their body with circles and circles and circles of teeth, and they latch on to fish and just suck fluids out of them. Oh yeah, I love lampreys. They're really cool. They look like absolute nightmare monsters. They're so cool. And it turns out there's a single lake in Oregon, I believe called Miller Lake, if I recall from this article. And Miller Lake is a classic, idyllic, beautiful spot in a big forest. And in the 1950s, it was run by the game wardens of the area. And the lake was a major fishing hub and a really popular area for sport fishing. And people would complain because they'd reel in their trout or whatever it was, and there'd be lampreys hanging off of it, and they were squigged out because that's gross. And you know what? Not wrong. People of the 1950s, I hear you, that was gross. And so what the game warden decided to do is they decided they had to kill all the lampreys. And so they poisoned the entire lake. They killed the entire ecosystem of the lake. Hello, Scott. And they just nuked it. And it took like 4 or 5 years for the poison that they'd put into this lake to eventually degrade enough that they could add sport fish back into it. So they just destroy this ecosystem to kill these lampreys. And then, so that's like the 1950s. And then in the 1970s, some, fish researcher is going through some local collection and comes across a preserved lamprey and was like, did you guys know this is a unique species? This is a completely different species. What is this skull? This is a sheep. Boom. So yeah, this is a sheep that I bought from the grocery store down the street. And I'm trying to pick all of the bits off before I can soak it and try to get all of the grease and stuff off to have a nice clean skull. Thanks for asking. But anyway, okay, so lampreys. So they turns out that they had poisoned this entire lake to kill off a completely unique species. Suddenly everybody's really sad about this. But luckily, some years later, I think in the 80s or something, somebody is fishing in a tributary off of the lake, downriver of where they'd actually blocked the lake off so it wouldn't connect to the tributaries. And they found a lamprey. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's a lamprey. And so now there's all these beautiful grad students and biologists who every year muck around in the rivers of this area looking for these little tiny lampreys, putting them in buckets when they find them and chucking them upriver and in this lake to try and repopulate the lake. So turns out they hadn't quite gone extinct, not through any effort of our type, and they are putting out all this effort to conserve like a horrible, gross, blood-sucking, jawless fish. So yay, there are good people in the world. That's my story. My happy story about lampreys. But I believe, if anybody wants to look that up, if I recall, the common name is Miller Lake lamprey. And that makes me happy. So, Scad, to catch you up on this, the way I'm cleaning this skull is probably one of the worst ways to do it, by picking at it by hand. The better way to do this is either to let it soak and kind of rot away for a long period of time outdoors somewhere, or to let flesh-eating beetles clean it off. And I live in an apartment in Chicago, so I have neither an outdoor space to do various stinky things, nor can I have any flesh-eating beetles. Chemical... Okay, so chemical is a tough word here, so sort of is my answer. My next step with this is I'm going to soak it in a bucket with some hydrogen peroxide to start with. Hydrogen peroxide is, you know, the stuff that you might put on a scraped knee. You can just buy it from the local pharmacy. And hydrogen peroxide denatures it oxidizes the blood, basically, and starts pulling the stuff apart. But then I'll probably just let it sit in water. Ooh, I wouldn't drink. Okay, yeah, you can gargle with hydrogen peroxide. Don't do too much, though. It literally, hydrogen peroxide rips the oxygen molecules out of organic tissue. And so, like, if you ever put it on a skinned knee, it'll turn your tissue white because it's ripping those oxygen molecules out of your blood. That's why it fizzes. When it fizzes, it's releasing oxygen and turning into water. It's a cool process. Anyway, so I wouldn't drink a ton of it or gargle with it too much, because luckily the stuff they sell at, like, CVS is 3%. So if you actually read the bottle, it's only 3% hydrogen peroxide. If it was much more than that, it would just destroy you. Fun facts about antiseptics you can have at home. So the hydrogen peroxide, I usually use it as like a topical antiseptic. So if I skin my knee, like if I have a deep cut, I don't necessarily put it on there, but if you wipe out on your bike and you have all that road rash and gravel, you can just dump a bunch of hydrogen peroxide on it, fizzes and kills all the bacteria that's stuck in your skin. But in this case, you put it on the dead tissue and it turns it bright white and loosens it up a bit. So yeah, I love hydrogen peroxide. It's one of my favorite, easy to find chemical reactions. But sulfur hexafluoride. I don't even know what that is. Do you know how you would even get sulfur hexafluoride? I mean, there's a lot of things that'll mess with your vocal cords, so I 100% believe it just right off the bat without even knowing what the chemical is. But in this case, no, hydrogen peroxide is just a topical antiseptic, and you can gargle with it. But I don't think it changes your voice much. So yeah, but you don't want to use a lot of, like, you wouldn't want to use an acid to clean this, because the acid will not differentiate between the soft tissue and the bone, and the acid will just destroy the bone. So, like, if I soaked this in vinegar, just regular white vinegar, it would turn the bone to a white powder over time. So, like, at first it might not look bad, but over the years, the vinegar that remained in the porous material will actually just continue to act on the bone, and it turns it into a white powder. So, I have to be careful. People will sell you things. Puberty is good for deepening the voice, too. Touche. There's a chemical. Testosterone will deepen your voice. But yeah, so you can buy proprietary mixes, but a lot of those I think are actually just like hydrogen peroxide, or rather dried peroxide that you then add water to. I have my theories. I might be wrong. It's a chemical being sold by under a proprietary label. I don't know what's in it. But there's no fast way to do it. The fastest way to do it is beetles. Beetles can clean this guy off in a couple weeks, or probably a couple days, honestly, if they're hungry enough. But if you're using like a liquid chemical bath and it's ripping away the tissue that fast, there's a really good chance it's going to ruin your bone too. So, silly organic material. Being kind of delicate, actually. That's a good edge of something there. Yeah. Clatter, clunk. So I've almost got this. There's a really thin bone right here. This is like the back of the mouth. And I'm trying to not lose the tip of it. I don't want to crunch completely through it. I think I got it. I think I might have broken a little bit of it. Because again, I'm not as cool as Beetles. Beetles would do this better. And I can't have beetles in my apartment. I couldn't even have beetles at the museum. The Field Museum has beetles. They have the flesh-eating beetles, and it's great. They have a special room for them with its own air filtration system and stuff, and it was pretty cool. The Nature Museum that I worked for, the Chicago Academy of Sciences, did not have a beetle room because they had no way to properly contain them. And that's another one. The flesh-eating beetles are real great for cleaning bones off, but if the domestic beetles get into your taxidermy, like the really beautiful mounted skins, they eat the skins and hair. And so if they get loose in your museum, they'll just gnaw their way through all of your taxidermy. So I've never had the joy of having beetles as my co-workers. Although when I was a volunteer at the Field Museum, I did get to send things to the beetles, which was fun. And you get to stand in the room and just listen to them chew, which is really cool. It's quiet, but it's this constant, like, grindy, chewy noise, because there's thousands and thousands of beetles in there eating all these different things. It was really cool. And, as discussed before, has a very singular smell. Alright. Okay, well, I've got that. You can see this protrusion now. I got that really pretty exposed. I'm very happy. So you said, Library Rat, you said that the hissing cockroaches also have a satisfying chewing noise when they're munching on their produce. That's cute. Honestly, insect chewing noises are kind of delightful. I don't know. But also somewhat horrifying if you think about how, yeah. Little of this, little of that. I think on the whole, though, it's pretty great. I just love the hissing cockroaches. Like, every noise they make is adorable. The hissing is funny. The chewing is funny. If they're pattering around on something, it's a really cute little pattering noise. I mean, that's a, 3-inch bug? They're really sweet. They're nice little buggos. If anybody's looking for an interesting pet, if you want to have a pet that's different than other people's pets, hissing cockroach. They make fantastic pets. Aw, you put a mini pumpkin in the darkling beetle habitat and they started eating it. Aw. Okay, so I love the whole Halloween season. Everything about it is a delight for me. But a thing that I've been leaning on really hard this year and I just adore is, like, every zoo on the planet gives pumpkins to all of their different animals as a form of enrichment. And I could watch, all these different species of animals screw around with pumpkins, like, all day. It's so cute. It's so funny how different... They add the pumpkins as enrichment for different types of things. So I saw, a video today of a jeweled lacerda, which is a beautiful lizard. Jeweled lacerdas look like they're covered in rhinestones. So if anybody was watching earlier when I was putting rhinestones on a mouse skull, P.S. I was doing that, jeweled lacerdas just kind of look like that all the time. Their scales are round. They're like little round beads, and the whole lizard looks beaded. They're just gorgeous. Anyway, I digress. So they wanted to give a pumpkin enrichment to the jeweled lacerda, but they're carnivorous. And so what the keepers did is they carved and scooped out the pumpkin and then just put, like, big grubs and delicious treats inside of it. And so the lacerdas were just climbing in and out of it and screwing with it that way. Whereas if you get, like, bears and even big cats and stuff, they tend to chew on them and rip them apart. But the other ones, they're like, we just want you to crawl inside the pumpkin. Can you please crawl inside the pumpkin and be cute? And the lizard's like, okie dokie, just put a big grub in there and I'll go wherever you want. I saw a great video of, forget which aquarium, but they put couple of pumpkins into a huge tank that contained snapping turtles. And snapping turtles have a really wickedly curved beak, and they're trying to bite the pumpkins as they're bobbing around. They couldn't grab it because their beak was so hooked. But there were edges, you know, they had carved faces into the pumpkins, so they were eventually able to rip it apart, and they seemed pretty happy about it. I think one of my cats is trying to get in. Okay, I've made really fantastic progress on this skull. I still might be working on this next week. I don't know. I probably should just put it in the bucket. I guess what I could do is put it in the bucket, and then, as long as it doesn't smell too horrific, I could work on it again next week, hopefully with it a little loosened up. Because I'm just getting this side of this inner skull area cleaned out. I'll have to see. So when I do this stink bucket, so that I can soak this skull, it's going to have to be outside of my apartment because my cats would be in it in a minute, and my spouse would be real upset if I had a stink bucket in the house. And so I'm going to have it out in the common hallway. And we're on the top floor, so we're at the top of the stairs. No one else has any reason to go up here. So as long as the smell doesn't travel too far, I'm not the worst neighbor in the world. Which basically means I'm going to have to be real diligent about changing the water regularly. Because if I let it just be a forever bucket of horror, the smell will travel. It's gonna smell like dead bodies, and I'm gonna get in trouble with my neighbors. So I'm hoping that just by being diligent about swapping out water, it shouldn't be too bad. But we'll see. Because, harmony with one's neighbors, it's important. My neighbors are nice. There's no reason to tick them off. They bring my packages inside. These are good people. They're not folks I really need to antagonize. So any neighbor who goes out of the way to bring your package indoors so that porch pirates don't steal it, you want to be nice to that neighbor. Because, man, Chicago's got some porch pirates. I really want to get this corner cleared out because I can tell it's a big opening up into the skull. But it's so packed in with meat. Oh, so, another interesting Twitch-related factoid for people who are newer to the format. Gifting subscriptions. I had somebody gift me a subscription to another channel that I watch. So you guys, a lot of people watch my feed, you hear me talk about Turtles and Chill. They're great. And, I love Turtles and Chill because you can watch some Turtles and Chill. I like turtles. Oh, I'm wearing the right makeup for that. Thank you, internet meme. I like turtles. Anyway, I should clip that. I was just on the channel. I think I had said something in chat, and someone went and gifted me a subscription. And so I didn't know it. I didn't know for 5 days because Twitch doesn't give you a really big heads up about it, which I was surprised about. I don't know. I was messing in my notifications menu, and I saw the notification, and I was like, I have a subscription to Turtles and Chill, and I love that. So, P.S. If you gift somebody a subscription to, I don't know my channel, but anybody on Twitch, tell them. They might not notice. I wouldn't have assumed that was going to be subtle. So. And you should go watch Turtles and Chill. They're great. Oh, and actually, with that in mind too, other funny Twitch things I'm going to try and do. Once I decide that I'm done for the night, I usually wrap up by 9, so in the next 10-ish minutes. I might go a little extra today, but I'll wrap up pretty soon. When I wrap up, I'm planning on then raiding my moderator's channel. So a lot of people, you guys are familiar with Pseudonine. Pseudonine is my spouse. and they are playing a game called Star Wars Squadrons. So you basically get to watch them fly a starfighter and go pew pew a lot with gorgeous backgrounds, absolutely gorgeous graphics. So if you like Star Wars at all, or spacey games, then I was planning on raiding their channel, and I believe the way that raids work is there's literally like a big button on my other screen, and I think it just whisks us all, me, you, everybody, over to their channel to watch. And you obviously don't have to stay there, but I think that might be a fun wrap-up on my end. Once I'm done here, I can just take us all over to Pseudonine's channel. And then if you're interested in that, cool. And if you're not, then, stay for 5 minutes, say hi, and then be like, well, anyway, stop in bed. I don't know. That's another one. That's an interesting function that Twitch offers to kind of support each other, which I find really kind. So I have never had my channel rated, but I have been on other people's channels when they were rated. And it's just a sweet... Everybody's always like, oh, this is really exciting. How nice. So. It's funny because they use the term rating because it's a video game term. If you've ever played World of Warcraft or various things, rating is a major element of the games. And this is not like that at all. I think the only commonality is that it's just, moving a lot of people around. It's more like it's like going caroling. I swear. Like door-to-door Christmas caroling, I feel, is a better simile. But you know what? They don't want that. That's not fun game vernacular, and so I don't think that's going to catch on. Okay, fine. Use your own terminology, Twitch, as if you know your game base. Alright, well, you guys can see I've got this shining white piece of bone out, and I'm real happy. Like, look at this other side. Like, none of that. Blah, totally disgusting. But that's nice. But I should soak this. Soak it and see what happens. It'll probably be great. I'll probably be happier. It'll probably be smellier. Pros and cons. The smell is not getting any better. Like, anybody who has ever eaten goat or lamb, there's a smell, even when it's cooked. That smell is here, and now it's starting to smell old. So it's not rotten yet. I'm actually literally going to rot it on purpose when I'm degreasing it, but this guy at the moment is not rotten. It just smells like meat that's been in the fridge too long, because it's meat that's been in the fridge too long. So, it's just the jam. That's what it is. Oh, that's a bunch of stuff. Blech. Can I just get this out now? Oh, there's a big piece. Okay, yay! That broke a bunch of stuff loose. So gross. So good. That made a broken sound. Huh. How do I clean my tools at the end of the stream? In my kitchen sink. Yep. Dawn dish soap. Kitchen sink. I make sure I don't have any other things in said kitchen sink. So, like, if I have a pot that I made rice in and I've been soaking it to get, like, the dried rice out or something, I remove that. And then just Dawn dish soap. Because, again, this is just raw meat, so it's like if I was cutting up chicken or something to make dinner, you wash everything really well. But yeah, and then all the bits just go in the trash. Although I have learned I have to tie them in another bag if I'm going to put it in the trash. And then I just try to take it out either the same night that I did this or the next morning, because it does smell funky. So I don't like having it sitting around in my kitchen trash for too long. I could hypothetically compost it, but again, it would just be sitting around, and I think that would smell really wickedly bad, so I don't do that. But yeah, my kitchen sink has delightful drainage, and it's a stainless steel big kitchen sink, so I know it's not gonna like hold bacteria, so I don't worry about the fact that I'm putting gross things in there, because honestly, you know, some of my dishes are just gross, or if I find a container of leftovers that went a little weird, I have to wash it in that sink too, so same gig. And, you know, pros and cons of doing this sort of work in your house. In my lab, there was no eating in the lab at all. I would let people have covered beverages. So if you had like a reusable coffee cup that had a top on it, something like that, you could have that in the lab. Or a water bottle with a top. But no eating of any type in the lab. And so we did weirder stuff. And here, this is my workshop, so, but I do eat in here sometimes, and I just have to be both a little more conscious of what I'm doing and a little sanguine, and be like, well, probably be okay. Like, it helps knowing that this is literally food. You know, I could probably still boil this and make it into soup. Not going to do that because I want the skull to come out nicely, and if you cook it, it will, again, eventually turn to a white powder and fall apart. But I got a lot out of there. That was a lot of shmoo in there. Shmoo, of course, being a technical term. Okay, I don't know how well you guys can see this. There's this bone here that is so soft I have accidentally poked some holes in it, or maybe I found some holes that were already there. But there's some really thin bone membranes in here that I wasn't really expecting. Again, having never worked on a sheep before, this is all exciting exploration. But yeah, these inner, what is that? Back of the mouth, below the eye kind of area is remarkably delicate. Oh, there's a good bit. Right. Oh, wow, that came right off. Let's get that guy off. Hey, that looks really good. Yeah, so some of this bone is just... Oh, wow, that was a nice piece. Some of this is just coming really, really clean. That is... Ooh. I am dripping something gross. Hang on. Yeah, shmoo and bits. Beat your lab vocabulary. Wow, yeah, something in the back here is now really drippy. I guess it just turned it the right direction that whatever pocket of fluid was in there let go. Or there might have been like a piece of ice that finally melted. Oh, that was terribly grody. There we go. Oh wow, that came out really nice. Ah! Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry. I knocked you on the floor. Hang on. I've never done that. Sorry, everybody. Alright, that was funny. I apologize. I don't know. Maybe that's a sign I should wrap up. I was hoping to go a little late today. How How about you guys? You guys up for hanging out a little bit more? Or should we call it a Halloween? Oh. Man, taking the break is actually delightful. I'm glad I'm doing this. Oh, it looks so good. Like, that looks like a skull. Like, that, what a ridiculous thing to say, but before it was a really horrible blob of meat and gross. Now it actually looks like a pink version of what it's going to be. Alright, Library Rat, if you're in, I'm in. Let me put a new pair of gloves on. We'll go a little longer. Oh man, all of the makeup came off around my lips. Oh well. That's okay. People know what I'm going for here. So, the mistake that I made when I so unceremoniously knocked my camera onto the floor was trying to get this little tissue bit out of here. So there's some sort of... I don't think it's a blood vessel. I think it might be a anchor for... Well, maybe it is a blood vessel. Okay, so I'm trying to see if it has, like, a center to it. Oh, there's two of them. Oh, that's interesting. I think this is 2 blood vessels. I'm not sure. This is where the fact that I've never worked on a sheep before really becomes obvious, where I don't know where those lead. You know, I'd come across it on this side already. So, evidently I shouldn't pull on that too much or I'll knock my camera on the floor. So, I'll let that weird dangly bit lie for the moment. Yeah, I have so much research I need to do on sheep-specific anatomy. Like, what is that? I don't know. I feel like I should find out what that is. And this is the cool thing about actually doing this kind of prep, is you're like, wow, that's a really specific thing I would have never questioned or known existed if I wasn't, you know, digging around myself. And I'm sure on a completed clean skull, that's probably real obvious as a whole, but I wasn't fiddling with it. I didn't really think about it. But having my hands on it makes me focus on it and wonder. I'm suffused with curiosity. What makes this sheep go? Or I suppose once made the sheep go. No, it's no longer going. It's busy being delicious. Presumably the rest of it has all been eaten at this point by various other people in this area. There we go. Trying to get this eye orbit cleaned off. So, yeah. If anybody was unsure, that's where the eyeball went. I'm sure most of you guys could have guessed that. I'm still kicking myself for throwing out that second eyeball without dissecting it. It was so much fun to dissect the one. But we learn. And now that I'm learning the technique with this skull, I can go buy another sheep skull from the grocery store down the street and potentially be faster, which should be pretty nice. Especially if the stink bucket technique ends up working out, I'll definitely be able to do more. If it doesn't, I might not be able to do any more sheep, just because I gotta be conscious of my neighbors. Which is a bummer, but fine, you know. And if it actually degreases without being a really horrible, stinky mess, then I can see trying to do this again, but without doing quite as much detail cleaning, and see if that works or not. If only I had beetles. Oh well, I don't. I had a teacher in the 5th grade, I think, who habitually picked up roadkill and described it as boiling them down for their bones. And now that I know more about these processes, I wonder what she did. Because actually boiling something until you get the bones out will get you bones. But they're cooked, so they're brittle, they kind of fall apart. And they don't really have a lot of archival value. They'll start to degrade pretty quick over time. And they often, they can be greasy. It depends what you boil them in. Or was she actually macerating them where you keep them warm, but you're not boiling them, so it's not a chemical change that you get through cooking, but instead was keeping it warm so they could kind of rot off. I have no idea, and so, Mrs. Richmond, if you're out there, I'm curious. But, yeah, I wonder what she actually did. But she was a cool teacher, because she'd bring in all these articulated skeletons she made. But what did that mean? And unsurprisingly, a lot of people who do, prep for sale, find her on Facebook, yeah, maybe, who do various specimen prep where they're going to sell the end things, have secrets. And that's been the case for centuries. This is my secret blend for cleaning bones. This is my secret blend for preserving tissues. This is whatever like that. So for all I know, if I find her, she'll be like, it's my secret. And that would be pretty standard, actually. The secretiveness of people who prep specimens is one of the reasons that, modern museums don't really know how to clean whale skeletons, which I find really funny. Because, I've been mentioning degreasing, and it's a sheep. So it's fatty, but it's a sheep. It's not a whale. Whales were hunted for their oil. They're made of oil. It's how they keep warm and helps with buoyancy. They're really, really oily critters. So how do you degrease a whale skeleton? And the funny thing is, sometimes you don't. There's a couple of famous whale skeletons, I think mostly on the East Coast, that drip tar. And they actually have, little catch buckets under certain parts of the skeleton to catch the drips of grease as they still are coming out of this, 200-year-old skeleton. So obviously some people don't know how to do that, but other ones are perfect. They're perfectly dry, they're perfectly clean. How did they do that? And we don't know. It was a trade secret. It's nuts! We have no idea how to degrease a whale skeleton. And obviously these days people aren't really hunting them per se. But, you find a whale washed up on the beach. Wouldn't it be cool if you could have the skeleton at your local museum? But, how do you clean it? How do you clean an entire whale? The jury's still kind of out on that one. There's not a best practice for degreasing a whale. And I last read about that a couple years ago, so I guess it's possible someone's figured out a good method at this point, but not that I have heard. Was her name Mrs. Richmond? Now I'm thinking about that teacher again. So I might be conflating the name with a math teacher I had in the 6th grade. I have to look it up. Well, who knows? Maybe she's out there still mounting specimens and teaching. She was a teacher at Buckeye Elementary School in, Painesville? Ohio? Oh wow, that's a good piece that just came off. There's a nice clean area. Aha! That's really good looking. There we go. That's a nice smooth bit. Oh, what a difference that one made. Alright, good, good, good. Cool, cool. yeah, check out that. That's starting to be nice and open. There's just a remarkable amount of tissue and really, really strong muscle around eyes because, of course, you got to move your eyes around and have generally expressive faces. And so this whole area has been actually kind of really hard to clean, but in the most interesting way. There, that, whew, that's a big difference. That looks way nicer. I always like these big arches of bone that kind of come flying out of a skull. Because, of course, when you're looking at something, it looks like one big bone head. It's just a big, sphere of hard bone, of course. But no, it's not. There's a lot of ins and outs and holes in a skull. And they're very pretty, actually. When I'm doing fossil prep work, these little pieces are mega annoying because they're often the things that are broken. But if you can put them together, they look really good. And they're usually really scientifically valuable. Although, man, the most recent skull I worked on at the Field Museum, which still waits for me whenever I'm allowed to go back and volunteer, my Dysonodont, the most scientifically valuable part of that critter was the bones in here. It was the palate bones, because there's like openings there where your palate attaches and it opens up into your sinuses. And apparently for that particular species of Dolitorannus, that was where the really interesting like comparative anatomy was. And I was like, okay guys, I'll clean out some sinuses for you. But look how good the rest of it looks too, and they love it. Dr. Angelovic was always very, very nice about my work. Oh, that's weird. Ooh, I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you see the bubbles? It like that whole area pulses when I do that. That's a weird spot. Probably shouldn't pull on that. Well, I think I actually might be wrapping up here soon. I can tell I'm getting a little foggy. But yeah, this is a good way to spend a Halloween. Can't complain. And I wasn't ever really one to do a ton of stuff on Halloween. If the weather was nice, one of my favorite Halloween activities was actually just to like find a sidewalk cafe that's open late and costume watch. Just watch everybody go by while eating ice cream or something. So, and this year might have been warm enough for that. We got almost to 60 degrees, I think, today in Chicago. So it's actually would have been a good day. But alas, perhaps next year. Oh, this is the most effort I've put into my own makeup for some time, so, There's that. Okay, yeah, that is looking way better. Like, look how clean this all is, and this is empty. Like, that's starting to look like skull and not just bad news. Okay, here's what I'm going to end on. I want to get this little ridge of tissue off of the eye orbit. Then I'm going to call it a night, and we'll go raid Pseudonine's channel and see what they are up to. I think that's a nice send-off. That'll give me a nice, very eye-catching area that I can feel good about. And it'll give me a good comparison. If I do decide to just start soaking it, I can compare it to the other side where I haven't done this much work. So, therein lies the science. Yeah, there's like this big meaty area right here I can't quite get to loosen up. Maybe I can come from this side. Oh, that's a little better. That's working a little better. Oh, it's a big old chunko of gross. Whew. There we go. Yep, I needed to come from the other side. Eye-catching, pun intended. Yes. Yes, that was on purpose. Library Rat, I appreciate you. Alrighty. Oh, yeah, this is so gross. And, like, basically, your faces are complicated, and in social animals, faces are extra complicated because if we use our faces to communicate emotion, then, you know, there's a lot of little muscles and extra bits to communicate those emotions. And sheep, of course, are incredibly social animals. That's why they are herd animals. And I was talking last week, when I was reading up about sheep, people have studied their intelligence, and they're actually not that dumb, turns out. Especially in terms of social intelligence. So they can easily learn human faces, and not only will they recognize you, but they can tell your basic emotions. They can tell if you're angry. Because they're social animals, and so they can pick up on those cues. So they're having the face be covered in like really big, weird, muscular things like this makes sense. Whereas like frickin', I don't know, alligator face, there's nothing going on in that whole rostrum. It's just really tightly adhered to the bone. I've never personally cleaned an alligator skull, so disclaimer there. But I have tried to secondhand clean a Gila monster skull, and that was a nightmare. Because the skin was basically bonded to the bone, and I think it just is. I think they're like their whole front of their face is basically practically just adhered to bone. It was kind of an old specimen though, so I, you know. Well, okay, yes, I have cleaned a 3D printed alligator skull. I have cleaned a couple 3D printed alligator skulls, but it's a little different. Oh, this is just the worst. Let go. Like, I got everything clean, but as soon as you get up to what I'm calling its eyebrows... Oh, that's a weird divot. The bone isn't as smooth here as I thought it was going to be. There's like a little ridge. That might be part of what's giving me hassle here. Yeah. What is this? Oh, there's like a cartilage cup. I guess that makes sense. There's like a cartilage hoop on the outside of the eye that probably helps keep your eyeball in. That is kind of like the nose was giving me so much hassle because the tissue adheres to the cartilage differently. That is definitely being sort of a pain. Well, this might not be the easy finish that I was kind of hoping it would be. That's alright. Again, it kind of just shows what I know about sheep, which is not a ton. But that's okay. Yeah, let's just leave that there for a moment. cut around. Alright, there. That was a nice big piece that I've been fighting with. Get away from my book. Whew. So you guys can kind of see it's not smooth here. There's this big ridge. There's like a point almost. There's a lot more detail here than I was giving it credit for. I figured this was going to be a lot more straightforward than it was, and I was wrong. Wrongity wrong. Where does the cartilage start? Alright, I think I'm just going to trim this and call it, because I don't know enough here. I don't want to damage my bone. So I'm just going to trim the excess off and we'll call that fine. There we go. So it still looks better, you know. Boom. So you guys can see it. Woo, that was dripping. Well, those pants are going in the laundry. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get this little bit off here. But you can see this like flexes here. So yeah, this is more cartilagey than I was anticipating. But hey, this is, again, overall, that looks like a skull, which is good. I'm pretty happy with it. I did make a lot of progress. Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. So I think it's ready. I still have a lot here, but I'm going to try soaking it and see if I can loosen that stuff up at all. Because getting in there has been just a gnarly beast. And doing this by hand is really rough. It's very different than doing a mink. Whew. And even when we did the mink, we would often soak them for a while and then try again. So I think my first soak I'm going to do in hydrogen peroxide. And see what happens. The hydrogen peroxide does kill bacteria, so it smells, but it's not as bad. And then I might either do water later or another round of hydrogen peroxide. So we'll see. Alright, my dear humans. It was an extra half an hour. I think that was good. So, thanks for hanging out with me. Whew! Working on various weird skull projects. Yeah, this guy's going in the soup. Thank you. Yeah, no. Good night, everybody. Happy Halloween. If it's already November 1st by you, then Happy Day of the Dead, or All Souls Day, or whatever part of the world you're in. And yeah, I appreciate, as usual, everybody keeping me company while I do really, really complicated long-term things like this. I really appreciate having you guys here to back me up. So have a great holiday, sleep tight, be safe, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!